Hello there, everyone. I'm Gaylen Morse, and welcome to Journey to Recovery. Thanks for joining us. Our podcast today is Understanding and Managing Stress. On today's program, we'll talk with Dr. Hal Baumchen about the almost endless list of stressors in life and what you can do to manage stressful situations better. Thanks for being with us today. Our podcast focuses on the co-occurring disorders of mental health and substance abuse. We present a wide range of thought-provoking, hopeful, and positive topics from a clinical yet practical perspective. Our host is Dr. Hal Baumchen, a licensed clinical psychologist and licensed alcohol and drug counselor. He's the author of several books on co-occurring disorders and is also a clinician with over 30 years of counseling experience. I'm here today with Tim Bode, Operations Director at Northland Counseling Services, and with Dr. Hal Baumchen, our host at Journey to Recovery. Hey there, guys.
Hello, Gaylen.
Hello, Gaylen. Nice to see you again.
Likewise.
Thanks for being here and setting up your studio. It's always nice to be here.
Yes, it is.
I understand that you and your team won a play contest, so congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, we came in first at our subsection competition for the one-act play, so it's very exciting.
Oh, cool. Congratulations. Probably a little stress rolled in there?
Exciting, but also stressful, yes. Especially as they were announcing the winners, and they announced third place wasn't us, second place wasn't us. So then either we did great or we didn't do good at all, so...
And it turned out well for you, so that's great. And then you work with high school students. That's got to be stressful. I mean, maybe they've got other things going on in their lives and they can't always make a practice or something. I'm sure that's stressful for the director.
It is. And then sometimes they don't tell you that they have other things going on. And so you're at practice waiting for them to show up, and they're just not there.
They had another commitment, right?
They didn't tell you, so...
It does seem like everybody in our world today is under stress, and that list of stressors is almost endless. We're stressed out at home and on our jobs and on the road in between. And this podcast is going to give some ideas, maybe some strategies to reduce stress before it buries you or breaks you. Mm-hmm. Gaylen, before we get into the big stressors of life, I was just wondering, do you guys have any pet peeves, those little annoyances in life that are frustrating?
Well, I don't know about any of our listeners from other states, but if you live in Minnesota and you drive out in the country at all, you see those little passing zones on the two-lane roads. All of a sudden, well, you'll be behind someone going 10 miles an hour under the speed limit. You get to the passing zone, all of a sudden they're going 10 miles an hour over the speed limit.
It happened to me yesterday.
And as soon as you get to the end of the passing zone, they're back to 10 miles under the speed limit.
Right. I couldn't pass them, now. When I have the no passing zone. Mm-hmm. Should have passed them back when they were putzing along, but they weren't. They were going 10 over.
Right. Right.
How about you, Tim? Do you have any pet peeves?
Well, we actually talked about one of them, perhaps, as a director of high school students, them not telling me that they're going to be late or not going to make it.
Right.
And then kind of related to that is when you're using a shared space, which I also do, having other people who also use that space not respect the fact that you need to use it, and so they leave all their stuff sitting out all over the place, and then you end up having to move their stuff. So that's a bit of a pet peeve for me, too.
How about you, Dr. Hal?
I think mine is being followed too close in traffic, so another traffic one. I just don't like it. I think I'm such a control freak that I can't control the person behind me, and that bothers me. So, that'd be my pet peeve. And when people name their pet peeves, they matter deeply to them, and the rest of us, we don't really have that, don't really understand it. I think stress can kind of be like that, where it's what stresses you is individualized. So what stresses you is different for what stresses me out. And through this podcast, I just want to keep in mind that stress can be managed. And one big thing for me is when we get bitter about something, it seems to make things so much worse. So part of stress management is to don't let yourself get bitter and resentful, because if we're happy and working through things and moving along in a good mood, hey, things go along better. It's when we wish somebody would have picked up their stuff and they wouldn't go so slow. We start getting frustrated. Watch for the bitterness and the resentment creeping in.
So in other words, we probably need to overlook some of those small things in order to handle them better.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Dale Carnegie said, control your temper, and remember you can measure the size of a person by what makes him or her angry. Are you losing your cool over the dinkiest little things, or do you have yourself well managed?
Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit and mentioned a few things that maybe stress us out, some small things, but what are some other things that people commonly name as stressors, do you think? What stresses people out?
One that Gaylen already mentioned was that traffic thing. And then in Minnesota, traffic and weather. Mm-hmm. I listen to a radio station. Every 10 minutes, they go over traffic and weather together, and they're proud of that. But in Minnesota, those two things are stressful together.
Mm-hmm. Financial problems, I'm sure, would be on many people's lists. Taxes, marriage, divorce, etc.
Mm-hmm. Right. So when we do this in a group, I'll say, what stresses you out? And somebody will say money, and I'll agree with them, like, yeah, what to do with all that money. But that is never the problem.
Right.
That is not the stress of life. And then with relationships, getting in one or getting out of one, or marriage or divorce, even something happy like marriage can be a huge stressor. Planning the wedding and that kind of thing, and being and staying married can be a stressor.
Try spilling a gallon of bridal veil paint on the morning of your wedding.
Where was that paint going? What was it?
I was remodeling an apartment that we were going to live in at the time, and I picked up a can of paint, set it on top of another, and over it went. And the can popped open.
Got to get that cleaned up. And
right away,
yeah.
Yes. Yep.
But I don't have time. I'm late for the church.
Now we're getting into the stress part of it.
Yeah,
yes.
Absolutely.
And I think there are lots of job-related stressors, right?
Just like that one that Gaylen was talking about, all of those deadline things can be a huge stressor on your job, at work. And also finding a job, leaving a job, getting a job, managing the stress on the job. Mm-hmm. I think all of those things, going to an interview for a job, all of those are stressful. Even looking like, will I find something? Mm-hmm. And in 2008, 2009, wow, what a terrible, stressful situation for people who were underemployed or unemployed.
Right.
Of course, nowadays a big stressor for many people, we just went through it in our family, aging parents.
Right.
It can be very difficult, very stressful.
My health problems, my children's health problems, my grandchildren's health problems, my parents, all of those important people in your life, we care deeply about their health and their physical illnesses and the stress that they're under. I think we carry that ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think in today's world, as we look at just the world around us, there are things that cause stress. Safety concerns as we go out and travel or go places, the world situation that we live in. Is there going to be war? Is North Korea going to shoot a missile?
Right.
All those kind of really big things cause stress in people's lives.
When there's a threat to national security, Tim, we know that's stressful, but the policymakers, of course, have to manage the crisis, and they have to manage their own stress level. There's been some good research on the harmful effects that psychological stress has on policymakers during those critical incidents. And the decisions that are made are not only affected by the actual fact or the situation at hand, the circumstances going on, but the stress level is affected by their own physical health, the addictions that they might have, the amount of sleep or lack thereof, all make processing the decisions in a crisis much more difficult because it adds to your stress load. And things like their drug and alcohol addiction all become factors in managing the stress.
Now, we're not talking about the Cuban Missile Crisis or North Korea, for that matter.
Right.
For most of us, when we talk about our level of stress, most of us aren't trying to prevent nuclear war. At least I hope we're not.
Well, right. But in the counseling center, I've seen some crises that look like maybe we're going to have nuclear war right there. And but you're right. However, you know how we were talking about what stresses you out is different for each of us? I'm wondering if, we're not managing things like that on a policy level or, a world war level. However, these things that are going on in our lives are very important. And they do stress us out. So we're going to talk through some of the factors that go into that.
Are there some physiological and psychological factors that add to the difficulty of stress management?
Got them both, don't we? So we get the physiological things. We're going to talk through a list of those today, and then the psychological things like increased anxiety or depression or anger and frustration. So we'll talk through all of that.
Mm-hmm. And of course, substance abuse and stress are definitely intertwined.
So I have to keep reminding myself and our listeners that this is a podcast that addresses co-occurring disorders. So on this podcast in our treatment centers, we try to help people who are suffering with both a substance use disorder and a mental health disorder. So when you get under stress like this, especially in our population, you might reach towards something that comforts you or relaxes you. You might reach for drugs and alcohol, and that can make matters worse.
And when you drink or use drugs, it often adds to your long-term stress. Is that right?
Although substance use may be distracting and calming at first, but it can add to that stress level, like you're saying, and cause you consequences like going to jail or losing your license or having somebody mad at you or losing a job, or even just spending your money and losing money. All of that can add to your stress level. Mm-hmm. So the drugs and alcohol you drank and used because you were stressed, now the consequences stress you out all the more. You want to grab again for something that brings you comfort. So, it can be a really bad cycle.
So does stress only happen during those times of, let's say, poverty like we were talking about, or can successful people have stress too?
Yeah, stressful situations follow us when we're poor and down and out, but also when things seem like, hey, what do you have to complain about? You can see where being poor or down and out would be super stressful, but even during times of success, people find themselves stressed out. Johnny Cash, you guys, of course, know who that was. He was a singer, songwriter, and guitarist, actor, and author, and he sold 90 million records worldwide. He passed away in 2003, but he had a career that lasted over 40 years, and even while he was pumping out gold records, he was super stressed out, and he started using amphetamines, speed, to keep him awake and keep him active on the stage and that kind of thing. He lost a lot of weight. He went from 200 pounds to 140 pounds. He got arrested in 1965 with 1,000 pills in his possession. So he was using the pills because he was stressed out. Even in his kind of rich and famous career here, stressed out, using the pills, and then got arrested. That stressed him out. So even somebody who we would say like, wow, he's so successful, even somebody like that can be under a lot of stress. My point, of course, is that even things like fame and fortune can come with a twisted stress of its own.
Yeah, it seems like stress isn't just about having bad circumstances, though, is it?
No, it isn't. It's really more how you think about the circumstances you're going through. And even when you start getting help, like going to treatment for substance abuse can be stressful. There may have been changes in your family or changes in your job and changes in your financial situation. So, hey, I'm going to treatment, I'm getting my life back. But now you've got some legal consequences that you're facing, or an unpredictable future, or you can never drive semi-truck again, or whatever. You have these consequences. Mm-hmm. And even when you're in treatment, I think there's still some stress that you're facing. You've got family members that are upset with you, all kinds of things going on.
Yeah. So let's talk about some common responses to stress.
Doesn't everyone kind of respond differently to stress?
Yeah. Some people tend to shut down, while others respond by just going full speed ahead.
I think my default is the go full speed ahead kind of guy. Like, maybe I should try to solve that and fix that problem. And other people that I'm around, stress shuts them down.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some physical symptoms of stress? How would you know that you're stressed out?
Yeah, let's go through some of those, and we'll take a look at some psychological and mental health symptoms as well. So first of all, we want to talk through some of the physical symptoms. Get us started here, Tim.
Yeah.
What do you think of?
Well, so actually one of the things that happens to me sometimes when I'm under stress is I get headaches.
Yeah, very common thing. Do you get that muscle tension in your neck or back?
A little bit, and then kind of there's one side of my head actually. I feel
throbbing,
like I've got,
and
right,
yeah. And then we come in and ask you for more stuff, and that adds to your headache, I'm sure. Do you get headaches? Are you a headache sufferer, Gaylen?
I'll get the tightness like you were talking about across the shoulders, or I'll notice that I'm biting down harder than I certainly
grinding your
need to.
teeth or clenching your jaw or something like that.
Yep.
For some people, I think insomnia.
Big one, absolutely. Stress and anxiety keep you awake at night, make it difficult to fall asleep. I always say that depression wakes you up in the middle of the night, but stress and anxiety keep you from falling asleep. You lay yourself down, your mind's racing about all the things you should have done and didn't do, and all the things you did do and wish you wouldn't have, what you said and wish you wouldn't have said that, can't get your words back. And your mind is just reeling with that kind of stuff, and that'll keep you awake. Your mind is too active to fall asleep.
For some people, I think overeating is a symptom of stress.
Yeah.
That's their way of dealing with it.
Right. You find yourself in the kitchen. I can't remember why I walked into the kitchen, but there must be a clue in the refrigerator. Let me look. And just kind of grazing through, trying to comfort yourself. It's a way to calm down. I think that can later add to your level of stress and physical problems, health problems, of course. People use more alcohol and drugs, too, when they are stressed, and we threw that in sort of the physical symptoms category. But it's a way to try to calm down and reduce some of those physical symptoms. Like you got that racing heartbeat and sweaty all over, kind of a panic attack feeling. And, hey, a couple of shots, lower that.
Or what about smokers puffing away on that cigarette if they feel stressed?
Yeah, I need a smoke break. Yeah. I don't smoke cigarettes, never have, but I like taking a smoke break. It's sort of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, but I need 5 minutes to rest here.
So what about some psychological symptoms? Let's talk about some of those.
So we broke it into two categories just to catch us up where we're at here. So the physical symptoms, but then the mental health or psychological symptoms, and those can include things like anxiety, and we talked about how that could, give you some sleep problems. But the anxiety is actually a mental health problem.
And depression?
Same thing, yep. So when you get pushed really hard, do you find yourself getting angry and irritated? Do you find yourself getting anxious and worried? Or do you find yourself getting depressed and defeated? I think those are kind of the big three.
How about confusion or spaciness, some irrational fears, that type of thing?
So much so, Gaylen, that it can look like, have you lost your mind here? Or have you lost your memory? There you are, kind of just fuming and fussing. Hey, did Barb walk in here? I don't know. Somebody did. I don't know. What, did you lose your mind, man? What's the matter with you? Don't you have a memory? No, it's not that. His memory is okay. He's so distracted with the stress and anxiety that he can't focus, concentrate, or attend. So that confusion or that kind of spaciness.
Feeling overwhelmed, overloaded.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can't function when you're like that. A little anxiety, even a little stress, is activating. So, boy, you got a little stress. I got to get my taxes done about the time of your birthday. And so that's a deadline. I got to hit that. A little anxiety helps us be motivated, but too much anxiety can be overwhelming.
Right. I told my cast that just yesterday. A little bit of stress. We're preparing for our performance is a good thing.
Yeah, and then don't let it cross over where now you're overwhelmed by it or paralyzed.
Right.
That would be the end result of being super stressed out. I can't move, can't think, can't concentrate, can't focus, can't get anything done, can't get out of bed because I'm absolutely paralyzed. Do you guys have difficulty concentrating when...
What?
Yes, actually, I do. When I'm stressed out, I have difficulty focusing.
Yeah. Somebody else can be talking and your mind is going over what you need to be doing with your project. Like, sorry, I tune. And you've seen me do that. Like, hey, could you repeat that? Because I was thinking about some other creative thing, some other idea.
Selective hearing.
Yeah.
Only you're not really selecting it. That's the problem.
I'll be watching television, and my wife, Jane, will come in and start talking with me. And then she'll notice that I haven't looked her way, and she'll say, "Are you listening to me, Hal?" And I've actually said this, "Jane, I'm trying as hard as I can not to." I'm sort of focused on that, and I don't want to let go.
Right.
I want to continue with that. So.
Right. So let's talk about some stress triggers. Stress triggers can be divided into two categories, internal and external stress triggers. So, Dr. Hal, can you explain those?
External triggers are those conditions that arise from the outside of you. They're situations and circumstances. And the internal triggers, they're more stuff going on inside of you. Either one of them can cause tension and stress and kind of add to our difficulties managing it, both what's outside of me and then my personality or my style and the way I deal with stuff.
So let's talk about some examples of external triggers.
How about like major changes in your life situation?
Yeah, when somebody passes away, a close family member passes away, like, boy, that's a big situation that changed everything. I'm stressed out. We could add a number of other things like losing your job or moving halfway across the country or going to a new school or even leaving school. I think those are big situations that cause stress for people. They ask themselves, what's next? And then there's a lot of worry symptoms like, what if I don't get a job? What if I can't pay my bills? What if? And all of that's those big situational stressors.
What about internal triggers? One on the top of the list is intolerance for ambiguity. Can you explain that a little bit?
Right. I hate trying to explain ambiguity. could go this way, could go that way. That's kind of the best way I can explain ambiguity. And we don't like not knowing. And so ambiguity is filled with not knowing. Now, this is a really, hopefully it's not a horrible example, but when there's somebody who's not getting better and you sort of want to pull the plug, or in a relationship that's not working out and you sort of, I want to know where we're going. I want to solve it and fix it right now. I want to pull the plug on it, or I want to go all in, but I can't wait. And kids hate this too. Like, well, we'll just see what the weather's like on Saturday, and then if it's really nice, maybe we could go. We'll see how busy Dad is. Like, oh, they hate that. Tell me now, are we going or are we not going? So that's that ambiguity. That's tough for kids. It's tough for everybody.
How about having a pessimistic attitude or negative thought patterns?
Why do you always have to bring that up, Gaylen? We're trying to be positive here, and there you are again, talking about what's negative. Yeah, I think it affects stress because one way to guard against stress is to be positive, upbeat, outgoing, enthusiastic, looking forward to things. And so when you're downcast, defeated, and hopeless, it makes your stress 10 times worse. Plus, you're dwelling on it. You're thinking about all the things that didn't go your way and all the people that didn't do you a favor and all the money you owe and all those negative things. Thinking about it all the time. And it makes stress worse.
And I think on the flip side of that, being too idealistic about things, your expectations of others or yourself.
When you get to be idealistic for other people coming through and then they fail you, I think it's a real strain, a real stressor in people's lives. I wanted you to come through and you didn't. You have to, with your play that we've been talking about, a one-act play contest that you were in with your team. You want them to do well and you believe the best about them, but you don't want to be unrealistic in your hopes. You want to have realistic, positive hopes for somebody.
What would you say are the top 3 strategies for managing stress?
When I lead a therapy group, I often just go over 3 quick things that you can do that help deal with stress. The first one is to throw something overboard. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed by the sheer magnitude of the stressful challenges on our plate. So go through your life, kind of make a list of the major things. Is there anything you could unload from your own life. Maybe you're a board member in an organization, or you babysit the neighbor's child for free, but your life is so packed, so busy, you don't have time for all of that. Is there something that you could excuse yourself from? Reduction in the number of responsibilities and duties can help you reduce the stress in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Are there some rules about what you can throw overboard?
Well, that's a good point, Gaylen. Yes, there are. You can't throw other people overboard, like don't throw your children. That's against the law. And don't throw somebody else's. You know what bothers me? It's your golf game. That's what bothers me. You're spending way too much time golfing. Don't try to throw somebody else's stuff overboard. Throw your own things overboard. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, a couple rules that are helpful there, Gaylen.
Number 2 that you use is manage life better.
Right. So sometimes we can't offload it, but you can manage your situation better. Some things can't be eliminated, but you can maybe work through them more efficiently. So if your kids are in swimming, maybe you can carpool with another family. So you're managing your stress. You haven't offloaded swimming, but you're managing taking the kids to the pool.
Yeah, and these things that we're talking about are the ordinary stressors of life, right?
Yeah. Not the big disasters of life.
Yeah.
But probably really what we're dealing with all the time are these ordinary stressors.
Yeah, and number 3 is tolerate what remains better.
Can't throw it overboard. You're already managing it quite well, and still life throws us some frustrating things. Can you just tolerate it better? I'm going to put up with it. I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to forgive that person. Those kinds of things go a long way. Just, again, managing myself a little bit better. Mm-hmm. They're all ordinary stressors in life, but because stress is inevitable, managing stress better becomes our only option. Both mental health and substance abuse disorders increase levels of stress, of course. Managing your stress also means managing your mental health symptoms, trying to take care of the anxiety levels and the depression, and, of course, managing your substance use disorder. So look for positive ways to cope with the difficulties of everyday life and resist the urge to eliminate all stressors, because that's not going to happen. You're not going to be able to do that. Instead, get stronger, become more resilient, face your fears, and learn how to overcome life's challenges and difficulties, and do whatever you can to strengthen your recovery.
Well, thanks everybody for listening to today's podcast. Also, we invite you to check out resources on the web at journeytorecovery.com, where you can download other materials that will help you develop skills to identify emotional problems, reduce symptoms, and prevent relapse at journeytorecovery.com. We've been visiting with author, speaker, and clinical psychologist Dr. Hal Baumchen. I'm Gaylen Morse. Thanks for listening to today's program. See you next time on Journey to Recovery. Remember, recovery is a journey. Enjoy the ride.